Hi everyone, we're going to start the webinar, and today's webinar will be on EcoTools, which is an API by EcoDesign. And this session will be recorded. So we're going to have a live demo, and then afterwards we will have some questions, a Q&A. Yep. So welcome, and just a quick overview before we begin. My name is Philip. So this is the third webinar in a series of webinars. The next topic we'll be doing is streamlining manufacturing with ProPanel 3D. If you have any requests for future webinars, let us know. And as I've mentioned, a recording will be made available by Farana. And we can also send you the slides and projects if you wish. So just a little background, what is EPLAN API? Essentially what EPLAN API is, it's an app that you can use to modify, to carry out certain functions or features in EPLAN. And the reason why we have this is to increase in efficiency when it comes to using EPLAN. So imagine you're doing a highly repetitive task that may take you 10 minutes. Whereas if you have an EPLAN API, the program might be able to take you, like 5 seconds, etc. So using APIs in EPLAN requires the API runtime add-on onto your license, and the APIs are stored inside a DLL file that you can load into EPLAN. So at EcoDesign, we sell 3 APIs. The first one that we sell is EcoTools, which is a wide collection of different API programs. More details next slide. The second one is the Eco Schematic Generator. It's an API that allows us to generate macros en masse by reading an Excel workbook. So you can generate like an entire project, you can generate multiple pages at once. Third one is the ProPanel Layout Generator. ProPanel Layout Generator, it works similar to the Eco Schematic Generator, except you're generating a 3D panel using 3D macros from an Excel workbook. And then the last one we don't have available for sale yet, but Tegan's going to go over it. It's the typical schematic generator. It's somewhat similar to the ESG, except we can record and create schematics without using a macro, with our macros only in Excel workbook. So these are some of the programs inside the EcoTools. As I've said before, it's a toolbox of different apps. So the first app is the Revision Cloud. What it does is it allows us to cloud certain sections of your schematics to list, to say that it's sort of a different revision. The macro management. This is an app that allows you to create window macros or page macros very fast. Key the macro name, adopt the variables. The text tools, it allows us to manipulate text elements, like export texts to Excel, import them back, create table, create watermarks. The project checkers, as it says on the slide, it just checks for errors. It's similar to the message management, but it's a bit simpler. And then lastly, miscellaneous functions, which it allows you to do all sorts of things, whether it's creating a hatch pattern, creating parts, and much more, which you will see in the live demo. And then under development, as I've said before, is the TSD. So again, we can record schematics, and then once we record them, we can regenerate them. It's complementary to using macros in ESG. It's not going to replace it. And it also comes with dynamic variables, which you can use to modify device tags, which you'll get an idea once we show it in action. Okay, live demo time. Okay. So up here is my EcoTools. I already have it loaded. So I'm just going to quickly go over. You can see revision clouds here, the macro management text, the project checker up here. And then we have all the miscellaneous functions, which were too many to put on the slide. So I'll go over these one by one. The first one we're going to go over is the revision cloud. So let's say this drawing came back for review and I want to modify my conveyor, put it on as another revision. So what I can do is draw a rectangle around this conveyor, select it, and then go into my cloud settings. And it's going to bring up this user form. So here I can decide this will allow me to decide how my cloud is going to look. So my pattern length, I can keep it 4. I can choose any of these, which I'll just leave it at half. And when I'm happy with this, I'm just going to draw my cloud. And you can see I get a nice cloud pattern. You can also choose to inverse it as well, if you plan on it, which is also another helpful feature just to distinguish it from a normal cloud. And if you want to give the client some details as to what this revision is, you can do that by inserting a revision triangle and a description. So let's say, I don't know, font size. Just put it here. When I'm happy, I can insert the triangle. And there we go. Yep. Once this is placed, you can easily move this up and down. You can move this triangle up however you like if you don't prefer the default position. Another useful feature to speed this up is the repeat cloud. So let's say that these interruption points need to go somewhere else instead of where they were going before. So I don't want to have to bring up the settings again. I want to take a shortcut and I can just go into repeat cloud. And you can see here it brings up everything before, and then I can move this around. Yeah. And now let's say a week's gone by. You've made all the changes, the project's been finalized, and you want to remove all of these revision clouds. And let's say you have it across multiple different pages. So to do that, we also have another feature, is you can select the page, and up here, you can go remove revisions. It will bring this error message box saying you wish to remove, so you can't accidentally click it. And you say, yes, I do. And they're gone. Nice and easy. And yeah, that's how the revision cloud works. So for the next group I'm going to be skipping macro management. I'm going to leave that for last, and you'll sort of see why when we get there. So I'm going to move on to the text editors next. So as I've said before, the idea behind the text editors is we can modify texts, and also in this case Y numbers as well. Do you see what I mean? So let's say in your project or in a project, hypothetically, you have something like this. These are all graphic texts, and I want to rename these. So this is page 1, this is page 2, page 3, etc. Now, to do this in EPLAN, normally you would have to do direct editing and manually change this to page 2, manually change this to page 3. That can take some time, especially if you have a lot of different texts. So to save you some time, we've made this little app where I can select all of these pages. Up here, I just click. It's going to bring this form up, and if we just look closely, we can see choose what to modify. So yeah, we can modify text, and we can do the same for Y numbers as well, or connection definition points, to use the technical term. We can choose a sequence of how it's going to be ordered. In this case, it won't matter. We even have the option to do a secondary language. So if you're making drawings for like overseas clients, you can do a second language, but for now we don't need it. So I'll just export to Excel. And yeah, this is what it's brought up. So if we just look at what's going on here. So yeah, but you can see it's telling me which page it's on. It's giving me an X and Y position, telling me if it's a text or a Y number, and then the actual contents of that text. So I want this to be page 1, 2, 3. So I'm just going to drag this down. So it gets something like this. I'm happy. And I can close it. And look at that. It's made the change for me. Nice, easy, and fast. And we can also do the same for Y numbers. So when I made this demo cable, I forgot to change the cable cores to, increments. So I'm going to fix that right now. Select all my cable cores. Do the same, edit text. Export to Excel. Yep, and you can see this time it's under color/core number. So I'm going to drag this down, make sure it's incrementing 1 to 16. And while I'm here, I've decided I might as well give it some Y numbers as well, which I can do in this column. So to keep it simple, I'm just going to go Y number 1. But it can be, whatever you want. Y number 1 to Y number 16. I'm happy. Let's close it. And you can see Y numbers up here, cable cores down here, nice and easy. Next thing I want to talk about is how to create a watermark. So the idea behind it, the idea with this program is I can make a watermark in the middle of my page. I can also remove it dynamically. So I'm going to click here. It's going to bring up this table, this form, I mean. It's got all the pages in my project. And in here, I can choose what's my text going to be. Let's say it's going to be a draft. And I'm going to say, let's put it on. We'll just go on just this page for now. But I can do multiple pages. I'll go generate watermark. And I close it. Yep, there we go. I've got a draft in here. If I've given this to a client, he came back, he's happy, and it's no longer draft, I can easily remove it. But to do that, I'm going to go back to create watermark, select your page or pages, and then just go remove watermarks. And they will be gone. Okay. And then lastly is to create a table. So normally in EPLAN, if you want to create a table, you would have to manually draw your rectangles like this, manually insert text, which can definitely take a lot of time. But with this new program, you can do it easily. So if I go create a table, okay, this is what comes up. So you can see here by default, it's 6 rows, 4 columns. So I can move it down to 4 columns, 3 rows, or however many you want. I can change the average row height, column width, if I want to resize them. I think I'm happy with that. I'll keep it as is. I can also resize individual columns like this. And then I can type in text. So let's say ID, description, and tech. And then I can just type in whatever I want. And then down here, you'll see insert placeholder text. So the idea behind this is if any field is empty, it'll just insert some invisible text with question marks. Yep, I can also resize this as well. So yeah, you know what? I'm happy with this table. Maybe shrink this down a bit. Yep, I'm happy with the table. Let's create it. And there we go. So there's my table. You can see the 4 question marks. That's because I did the insert placeholder text. If I didn't, it'll be empty. And with this created, it's all grouped. I can just move this up to wherever I want it to be. If I ever change my mind, I can always just edit individual texts later. And yeah, that's how we. So yeah, that's the text section done. I'm going to move on to the project organizers next. So with EPLAN, if you've used this, you will have many projects open at once. in your project navigator over here. And a lot of clients, a lot of clients wish to, rearrange these projects. Like, for example, maybe I want my macro project to be at the top instead of at the bottom. And luckily, we've created a program that does this with Project Organizer. So if I zoom into this, so let's say I want my macro project to be above my demo. So if I go up here, I click Reorganize Project Navigator, and you can see it's above now. So nice little helpful feature just to keep. Let's just reopen this again. Lastly is the project checker. So if I click on this, so what the project checker is doing is it's giving you a custom list of errors or things you should check in your project. So I'll go through some of these examples. So at the top, the first two, for example, I can see there are two black boxes. They're on page 100, column 2. And the problem with these black boxes are they're missing part numbers. And then I've got some circuit breakers and some overloads here on page 100, column, these 3 to 9. You can see they're missing mounting sites. And if you keep going, you can see wire numbers unassigned, terminals missing part numbers, cables, etc. Also, another feature I like is this one here. If you have interrupts that are missing cross references, or they're not, meaning that they're not going anywhere, this will tell you. You can see here, these interruptions, L1, L2, L3, they're not going anywhere. So I need to do something about them. And it just keeps going as well. So just a nice little handy feature. And if you're wondering like what the difference between this is and the message checker, the answer to that is the project checker is just a simplified version, just a smaller scale simplified. So it's not going to be like, it's not going to give you absolutely everything. Okay, now we're going to move on to the miscellaneous functions. So the miscellaneous functions, these are all one-off standalone different apps. Okay, so the first one that we have in the list is the hatch pattern. So with default EPLAN, when it comes to patterns in like rectangles and polygons, your two options are either empty like this or one solid color. However, if you want something, if you want some more options than that, then we've created this hatch pattern tool. So to give you a demo of how this works, is let's say that these two motors, they're in the hazard motor 1, hazard motor 2. I want to say that this is a hazard zone. So I'm going to put a rectangle like this. Open up this form. And you can see I can choose one of 6 patterns. So you know what? I think the forward slant will be good enough for me. Choose the spacing. I'll keep it at 4. Add a note. So I'm going to say hazard zone. And then I can choose a color. I think I'll just go orange. And then I go full pattern. Yep. You can see we now have lines, and we even have a text in the middle. And if you want the text as groups, you can always drag it around like this, or move it to the top. And in case you're wondering, it can also work with polygons. So I'm just going to quickly draw a pattern like this. I draw a pattern, do it again. This time I'll do a slant cross. I'll just make it blue. Yep. So you're not limited to just rectangles. Okay, yep. Let's move on to duplicating objects, or duplicating objects across different pages. So in baseline EPLAN, if you want to copy and paste something across multiple pages, you would have to go Control V, click, next page, Control V, click, next page, Control V, click. But with the duplicate objects feature, you can do that in the click of a few buttons. So let's say I have this copyright eco design. I'll just make it a bit bigger. I have this copyright eco design. I want to put it on the previous 2 pages as well, not just on this page. So I'll select this, duplicate objects. I can see these are the page. These are all the pages in my project. So let's see. I'm on page 200. So I'll select the 2 above. Duplicate. And now let's see if this worked. So exercise 3. Yep. It worked. Okay. Next one is the page layers. So the idea behind the page layer is if you want to hide certain graphical elements or objects in general based on the layer. So here's an example. I have some cable trays or Profinet cable trays, or buses, I mean. And each of these buses are on its own separate layer. So, for example, this bus 1J, if I double click it, you can see it's on its own separate layer. And the same will go for the other buses. Now, let's say I want to hide bus 1K as an exercise. I just don't want to see it. With page, if I open up page layers, it's going to tell me what do I want to see, what do I not want to see. So if it's unticked, I won't see it. Let's see. Oh yeah, K's up here. Okay, and you can see it's invisible because it's grayed out. If I close this and press U, yep, it's now invisible, and you don't see. You also don't see it on here. And I can do this for other ones as well. Like let's go for J and L, so I can see L here. And I can see J here. And you can see now it's beginning to, I'm hiding certain stuff. And if I want to do this in bulk, I can just go selection mode, tick everything, and then just go execute. So that's going to do everything in bulk. And yeah, that's how page layer works. So again, this feature is super useful, especially if you have like an FDL, if you import an FDL drawings from AutoCAD or DWG, and you want to hide like invisible lines or hidden layers, this is the way to do it. And whatever you do on this page, it will not be, the next page, let's see, like 301, will not be affected. So let me just give you a demo. If I hide K over here, you can see K's hidden here. Next page it won't be. So it just affects just the page. Okay. And then the next 2 are pretty simple. We have a swap page numbers. So swap page numbers does exactly as it says. Let's say I want to swap 200 and 300. I select both of these pages. Go swap page numbers, and you can see it swapped them around. And I'll just swap them back. And the next one is cable summary. So the idea behind this is that it just adds up all your cables. There's already a feature, something like this in EPLAN, but the difference between this and the one in EPLAN is this exported to an Excel. So to give you a demo is I select my project, click here, and it's going to bring it up an Excel file. So this is like a bill of materials from all my cables. And it'll tell me the total length for each one and the longest individual length. So the longest one for this 3-core will be 12 meters. And I'll just close this. Yeah. Okay. And now the last 2 will be to generate parts. So let's say in your company, you have your own custom conveyor. It's not from like an existing supplier. It's your own custom part number, custom model. And you want to put this custom model into your parts database. The traditional way with EPLAN would be to open up your parts management, go into the correct spot, and then go, right click new parts. So that just, you would go right click new, you would manually fill in these details. But the fast way with EcoTools would be you select everything like this, and you go generate part. And let's just zoom in so we have a good look. So here we can choose the part number. So let's just go custom conveyor. You'll pick a manufacturer. It can be your own company, or I'll just do local if you want something more generic. Pick a product group. So these are all the product groups that EPLAN is using. To make it simpler, I'm just gonna go undefined, and then I can decide later if I want to move it. We have part number, manufacturer, product. I'm happy with this, so I'm going to go generate parts. And done. Now let's have a look and see what this did. So I'm going to go back into my parts management. And if you remember, we chose undefined. So it's going to be down here. It's going to be under local. There we go, custom conveyor. I see the name. And let's have a look. So you can see under part number, type number, order number, it filled this in. Manufacturer, supplier, it filled this in with local. If I go down, continue, it even gave me a schematic macro. So it generated a schematic macro and it linked it as well. And the biggest thing for me is if you go to function templates, it's got everything there. It's got the black box, your device connection points, L1, L2, L3, earth, and then the Ethernet. And to put this to the tests, I'm going to go into my insert device compatibility. So I'm going to insert the device. I see custom conveyor here. If I go OK, you can see it's placed it onto my cursor. And then I can just go number. Yep. And now I have 2 conveyors. So again, it just makes, so what this does, it makes creating parts, creating macros just a whole lot easier, a whole lot faster. And that being said, it doesn't do 100% of everything. You will need to give it like a description, and then maybe like a height, width, depth if you're planning on using it in the MCC cabinets. But it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Okay. And then the last one in the MISC is the assign main function. So let's say as an example, you have like a 50 core cable, and this 50 core cable is shown across multiple pages. And when you copied and pasted all that cable, you forgot to untick main function, and now you have cables. This is a main function cable. This is a main function cable, as so is the 1 and 101. And obviously you can't have that because you don't want duplicate part numbers. So if the assign main function is, I can select one of these cables, I click assign, and now this one here will be the main function, this one and the other one and 101 won't. So you can see here it's unticked. It's just a good tool to make sure you're not duplicating your parts. And this doesn't just work for cables. It can work for black boxes, PLC boxes, symbols, any device, really. Yeah. Okay, so that's all the miscellaneous functions out of the way. And we've saved the best for last with the macro management. So let's say I have a macro project like what you see here, and I have a good number of window macros. So yep, so each of these, so these are my PLC macros, and each of these has a macro box and a placeholder. But let's say I was to create them from scratch. So I'm going to create these from scratch. First thing I'm going to do, I want to get rid of the macro box and the placeholders. I'm selecting all of these pages. And I'm going to go remove macro box. So yeah, this will just leave all the macro boxes and placeholders. Yep, and now we can start from scratch. So to use, if you were using EPLAN normally, to make a window macro out of this, you would go insert your macro box, insert your placeholder, and pick your device. Then you would have to double click into the macro box and give it some name, pick your, whoopsies, pick your folders, macro, something like this. And then for the placeholder object, make sure you have everything assigned to it. And then you would right click, adopt variables, remove the name full. And there you go. That's how you would something like this is how you would create a window macro. And it's not too bad. It's not a bad way to create a window macro if you got, one or two. But you can imagine if you have like 50, 100, you don't want to repeat the same process 100 times. And luckily, with the macro management, we can do this with a click of a few buttons. So let me walk you through this. So first step would be to place your macro box. So I'll create something like this and place your placeholder. Just get it. Yeah, I'm just getting on the page, nothing filled in yet. Then I want a macro box and a placeholder on all the pages. So I'm going to use that duplicate objects that I showed you before. Make sure it's on every other page. And if I have a look, yep, you can see all the pages have this. Now, the first step I want to do is I need to give these macro boxes a proper macro name. So, yep, I want to give all of these a macro name, and I'm not going to be typing these out one by one. Instead, what I've decided is I want the macro name to be whatever this page description is. So, for example, this macro box will be a path and then /isolated feedback. And then this one will be path /di feed, etc. You get the idea? So I'm going to select all of my pages. And I'm going to use adopt macro name up here. And if I just zoom in so you can see, yep, these are all the macros that I have selected. This also works for page macros as well, not just window macros. I'm going to choose a path. Let's say demo path. I'm happy with that, demo path. And if I go adapt, okay. Now let's take a look and see what just happens. If I double click this and look at that, demo path /isolated feedback. And let's see if this works for something else. Like let's go for the 5 signal inputs. There we go, demo path, 5 signal inputs. Nice and easy, saves me a lot of time and energy. So that's one half of creating a window macro. The other half will be getting the variables in my placeholder. Yep, so instead of going adopt variables over here, I'm going to select all my pages and we're going to repeat the process. Select all my pages, this time adopt variables down here. If I click on it, just got to wait for a bit and yeah. And then let's see what this did. If I double click the placeholder, oh, look at that. It adopted all of these variables and without the name full, which is what we don't want. And let's just go to the 5 signal input. Let's see, does this have as well? Yep, it did that across all of the pages. We go to this one. Yep, it's all there. So yeah, that's how macro management works. And then the last thing I'm talking to you about EcoTools before we move on to the TSD is just this about EcoTools. So if you click on this about, it just gives you a bit of information, nothing special, just tells you, version number, just gives, how to contact us at EcoDesign. And yeah, just gives you expires and tells you when it will expire as well. Just if you want more information. Yeah. So yeah, so that's EcoTools done.